Are you looking for a top suburb in the Portland metro area? Well, look no further than Tualatin, Oregon. In this video, we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of living in Tualatin, and all that starts now. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Tualatin, Oregon. If this is your first time to the channel living in Oregon and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We talk to people all the time who are relocating to Oregon, moving to the Portland metro area, and as real estate professionals, we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to the Portland area. All right, so Tualatin often becomes an area that gets onto people's radar if they're looking for a more suburban type neighborhood that's a little bit more removed from the city. Tualatin's about 10 miles south, maybe 8 miles south of downtown Portland, right down I-5, and it's right on Interstate 5. I-5 kind of separates Tualatin into two halves for the most part, although I think most of what's considered Tualatin is on the west side of I-5. You do have a little bit of an extension on the east side. There's a kind of a newer shopping center over there, and then you have like Fox Hill, and you have the hospital over on the east side of I-5, but it's all very close. You know, Tualatin is not an enormous suburb, so it's really easy to get around the area. And Tualatin is definitely a kind of newer and more newly developed area overall. When you look at some of the shopping centers, like you have on both sides of I-5, as well as Bridgeport Village just on the north side of Tualatin, and the housing as well. I think if you drive around Tualatin, you're going to see some older neighborhoods, not a ton of really old homes. I mean, this was a rural area at one point, and for a long time there was just standalone homes that had more property, more acreage and things like that, and over time it's been filled in with housing development. So you get a lot of development starting around kind of mid-century, 60s, 70s, but most of what you see driving around Tualatin is really kind of 80s, 90s and beyond. This is an area in the Portland metro area, which is something you don't get in every place, where there is still a bit of new development going on, because kind of this west and southwest part of Tualatin does start to bump up against the urban growth boundary. You know, that's where you see the majority of land that is yet to be developed, and so you're still seeing, you know, these plots of land, these developments going in, and new construction coming up, which is really attractive to a lot of people, I think. So if new construction is something that you're specifically looking for, Tualatin is definitely a place to keep on the radar. But what do people like about Tualatin? What do people not like about Tualatin? That's exactly what we're going to discuss in this video. And in this video, we're going to do it a pro for a con. So we'll say something that is a pro and a benefit and a thing that people really enjoy about the area. And then we'll talk about something that, you know, might be considered you know, an element that makes the area a little bit less desirable. Now, you know, we go into these conversations, obviously there's a lot of nuance and there's different context around some of these different points, because everybody's dynamic, you know, and their circumstances different. Everybody has different preferences, and, you know, in terms of what they're looking for, you know, their household dynamic, family, younger, older, what they want to do, their lifestyle, all of those things come into play. So, you know, we can't necessarily speak just to one demographic or audience, but I think kind of painting with a little bit of a broad brush, we can talk about the pros and cons of living in Tualatin, and starting with, first and foremost, it's a great place for families. You know, this is a place that is as suburban as anywhere in the Portland metro area. Areas like Happy Valley come to mind, as well as Sherwood, where when you're driving around, you have, you know, these very well planned, very well laid out, very deliberate housing developments that really cater to, you know, those larger homes that are going to be built and kind of made for families. And the schools in Tualatin are rated great as as well. So the Tualatin Tigard School District, Tualatin and Tigard share school district. So it's a little bit of a bigger district, but smaller compared to like a Beaverton Schools or Portland Public Schools. So I think there's still a little bit of that kind of small town element, you know, when you look at a relatively small school system. You know, Tualatin has one public high school and then just a handful of schools that feed into it. But again, if you look at public data, you're going to see that Tualatin schools are rated really high. This is an area that is rated low for crime. Again, you know, you're looking at the majority of Tualatin. If you look at the entirety of the footprint of Tualatin, you know, these are all kind of nice, relatively new, well-planned, clean, laid out housing developments that, again, really kind of fit the stereotypical suburban area. So if that's what you're looking for sure, you know, that's going to be a benefit, and Tualatin is a place to certainly have on your radar. Now, on the flip side of that, you could look at that as a con to some extent. You know, you might be moving to the Portland metro area, and maybe your office is in Tualatin, maybe your office is in Wilsonville, you know, in this vicinity where Tualatin shows up as an area that has potential for you to live, but you might not be looking for suburbia. And if you're looking for a little bit of a higher energy, a little more culture, you know, arts and culture, things to do, bars, nightlife, you know, new restaurants to go try out, Tualatin's probably not going to be the best place for you. There are some restaurants here, you know, some kind of small, locally owned restaurants. You also have the Bridgeport Village, which kind of in and of itself is a little kind of downtown area or community with some really good restaurants and bars and things like that. So a little bit of a higher energy spot. But, you know, again, depending on the dynamic that you're looking for, if you're looking for a little bit more of an urban area, if you're looking for an area that meets kind of, you know, some of the stereotypical, you know, Portland or Portlandia, you know, in particular type elements, you're definitely not going to find that here. Now, again, you're 12-15 minute drive, maybe 20-25 minute drive into downtown Portland depending on time of day. So you can get into the city, you can get up into Portland, you can enjoy a lot of what Portland has to offer. And living in Tualatin, you're in relatively close proximity to that. But I think overall, kind of culturally and just the overall makeup of Tualatin could check a lot of boxes for you, or maybe not so much. All right, so another pro of Tualatin is it's very green, it's very beautiful. You know, we're right here at the Tualatin Community Park, right on the Tualatin River, right in the heart of Tualatin, very centrally located. The Tualatin River runs through Tualatin, and I mean, this is an area that attracts a lot of people with kayaks, paddle boards, things like that. There's a ton of access points for the river. There's also a lot of great parks in Tualatin, Ibach Park, for example, and pretty much everywhere you go in Tualatin, you have tree-lined streets, you have walking paths, walking trails. Browns Ferry Park on the east side of I-5, around that Fox Hill neighborhood. Really great area, really great spot to go walk around, walk your dog, go for a jog, whatever it may be, or just get out and enjoy some fresh air. There's really no shortage of that in Tualatin. So of course, we're in the Pacific Northwest, right? And if you're in the Portland metro area, you know, you always hear, okay, you're hour and a half to the beach, hour and a half to the mountain, hiking, the Willamette Valley, all of that. So, you know, you're for sure in an area in Tualatin where all of that is accessible. But again, there's so much to get out and see and do as far as, again, just enjoying the outdoors, enjoying nature right here in Tualatin. So I think that's a thing that a lot of people who live here really enjoy about it. All right, next thing on the list being a con, kind of getting at what I was alluding to in the first con, being such a newly developed area, there really feels like a lack of history and a lack of culture here. I mean, there's certainly a lot of history here. You know, Tualatin, I think, was incorporated in 1913. It's been a settlement since like 1850. So, you know, you're still near Portland. We're here in the Portland metro area, you know, which really grew and developed over the last 150 plus years. And then, so, you know, there's little things that you can go see. There's, you know, a handful of, you know, kind of old original structures and things like that. But, you know, don't get me wrong, like when you're driving around Tualatin, this is an area where a lot of these neighborhoods, although big, beautiful homes, again, nice sidewalks and walking trails and great amenities, great parks, things like that. This is an area that I think a lot of people would describe as cookie cutter in a lot of ways. And so, you know, again, the elements and some of the things that make Tualatin great in a lot of people's eyes are things that in others, you know, might be a little bit of a deterrent or might not be exactly what they're looking for. So I think overall Tualatin does have a little bit of a cookie cutter feel. It doesn't have kind of this rich cultural history that, you know, when you're walking around and out and about, you can kind of feel and experience. So you're going to get that in a lot of suburban areas. But again, Tualatin, you know, along with a couple others in the Portland metro area, are, you know, amongst the most kind of suburbia to the max type areas that you can get in the Portland metro area. All right, so next on the list for pros is Tualatin is really pretty conveniently located to anywhere you would want to get to in the Portland metro area. In fact, you have Tigard neighboring to the north, which is just a little bit closer to Portland and to Portland city limits. But I've talked about this in a pros and cons video about Tigard. I'll link to it right here. You know, in Tigard, you can get a little bit buried in some of the neighborhoods that you're in, because you know, Tigard's pretty big. Your primary access point for the most part is Highway 99, where you have a ton of stoplights. It can get really backed up, but really for most of Tualatin, you're going to be able to access I-5 very quickly. And unless it's rush hour, of course, you can get, you know, south down to Wilsonville, but especially north up into Portland relatively quickly. So, you know, you don't have to, you know, get on a ton of different highways or, you know, change freeways just to get up into Portland. Again, the location is pretty convenient when you look at that proximity and to I-5 and really being right on I-5. But, you know, even getting up into Tigard, up into Beaverton, pretty simple. And especially from here in Tualatin, if you go due east, you're going to get into an area called Stafford, where you can get into Lake Oswego and West Lynn very easily. In fact, I would mention Stafford, definitely one of the most beautiful areas of the Portland metro area, one of the most expensive areas in the Portland metro area, but it's a great place to get out and go for a drive for sure. If you want to get out and take a country drive and look at some multi-million-dollar estates and see beautiful rolling hills and green spaces, I mean, that's bordered right there with Tualatin, just on the east side of the city limits. So, you know, you have a lot of great things accessible around you, not just easily getting up into downtown Portland, but a lot of the other suburbs surrounding Tualatin, you know, from Sherwood to Tigard to, you know, West Lynn, Lake Oswego, very nice areas that have a lot to offer. So, you know, we talked about how Tualatin itself might not have as much to offer as far as kind of things to do, nightlife, well, not even nightlife, but like restaurants and just places to go out and get a drink or things to go check out. A lot of these areas around it do, and so you can get more kind of diversity in your day-to-day, and there's more offerings if you just extend, you know, 2, 3, 4 miles in any direction of Tualatin. All right, so next for the list of cons, and something that we've kind of been alluding to here, is that there really isn't a ton to do in Tualatin. I think probably the most redeeming quality about being in Tualatin is you have all this great green space, the great parks, walking trails, things like that. But, you know, Tualatin really kind of lacks a cohesive downtown area. In what you would consider downtown Tualatin, there's a couple of strip malls and pretty decent shopping centers. So there is some convenience, and it does have kind of everything that you would need. These ducks over here wanting to chime in as well. But I mean, there's no like real main street. There's no cute little strip, you know, in a downtown area. You have Lake of the Commons, which is really cool. You do have a couple of restaurants right down there in that area around the Martinazzi Plaza, or on Martinazzi. This is where you have your Fred Meyer, you know, your Walmart, Cabela's, which is great. So if you are more into outdoor sports, fishing, hunting, especially things like that, Cabela's is right there in this area. So there is some relative convenience, but if you're looking for an abundance of, you know, great local restaurants and coffee shops and bars and even like little boutiques and shopping and things like that, it's just, you know, really close to non-existent here for the most part. And again, that's what makes the convenience of getting out to Lake Oswego, or even getting up into Beaverton, or especially up into Portland, you know, that's what makes that point so important. Is, okay, you may not have as much to do in the way of like shopping, you know, getting out on the town, things like that right here in Tualatin, but it's not like it's that far. All right, next on the list of pros is that we talked about all of the housing development in Tualatin, and so many of these neighborhoods don't have a ton of through streets. So once you get into your development, it's a lot of cul-de-sacs, you know, it's a lot of circles and loops and things like that. So you're not going to get a ton of through traffic in your neighborhood, and that's going to allow for, you know, the kids to go out and play in the street. You drive around Tualatin, you see that everywhere, and you know, you see the little slow down for kids signs, and you see, you know, kids riding around on their bikes or on their skateboards or playing basketball, you know, and doing things like that, where it's safe to be out on the street. Again, you're not going to get bothered by a ton of through traffic. And so what that makes for, and really, you know, I think one of the biggest benefits there, not only the safety for kids, obviously, but you just have such a community feel, you know, from the people that live directly on your street, you know, your direct neighbors, to the community or the development that you live in as a whole. I think there's probably a stronger community feel and more cohesiveness from neighborhood to neighborhood here in Tualatin than you get in other towns or suburbs of the Portland metro area. So that's definitely a benefit. And I think from everybody that I've known or talked to that have lived or live currently or have grown up in Tualatin, you know, they all know their neighbors. They all have friends that they grew up with from their street, even if they moved away and went to different high schools, went to different colleges. There's a closeness, I think, that exists in a lot of neighborhoods throughout Tualatin, again, that you're going to get at a much higher volume, and there's a much higher likelihood that you would experience that living in Tualatin than in some other suburbs of the Portland metro area. Now, you could look at that as a con a little bit too, because I think a lot of people love the community aspect. A lot of people love, you know, having their kids be able to go to the park together and just knowing their neighbor, you know, and everything that goes into that, from just feeling safe to helping each other out to, you know, the things that neighbors do. On the flip side of that, though, you know, I think there's some people that really don't want to be up in each other's business too much either. And so if you're looking for a place to live where you're not really interacting with your neighbors all day long, and you don't have to deal with maybe some of the gossip and things like that that goes on in living in a community like that, I mean, Tualatin's probably not going to be the best place for you. So again, on one side, you know, the community aspect is great and definitely in full effect here in Tualatin. But on the other side of that, you know, if you don't want to be a participant in that type of community, it's going to be hard to get away from, probably. It's going to be hard to ignore, hard to kind of separate yourself just because of the way these neighborhoods and developments are set up. So pro, con, you know, you be the judge. All right, next on the list, and of course we have to talk about housing. This is another one that I think you could look at a pro or a con. So, you know, if you're relocating to Portland from out of the area, you know, you look at these towns, you look at these suburbs, you look at these areas on a map, and it's hard to know, you know, what the vibe is like, what the feel is like, and, you know, what the houses are like, what the neighborhoods are like, all of those things. And so in Tualatin, for a lot of the reasons we've talked about, you know, there is a lot of desirability and a lot of demand for the types of communities that Tualatin offers. And that's reflected in the median sale price, which is $705,000. Now you look at an average price per square foot of $303, that's on par with Tigard and Beaverton. So, you know, Tigard just to the north of Tualatin, and then Beaverton kind of north of that. You have consistent price per square foot, so how much home you get for your dollar. But in Tualatin, the median sale price is higher. So what does that mean? That means that the houses here are bigger. And then so, you know, that point trickles down to a lot of other points. Like, again, like I mentioned, this is generally considered a really great place for families. And, you know, young families, growing families, large families, you know, are typically looking for those 4 or 5 bedroom homes, you know, starting around 3,000 square feet, maybe 2,750, something like that. And you're just gonna get a ton of that in Tualatin. So you're looking at a median sale price that's a little bit higher, yes, but you're looking at a much higher volume across the board, and more opportunities or more options to get what you're looking for in a larger home, plus all of the other aspects of a community that areas with housing developments like this tend to offer. So again, you're going to be paying a little bit more in Tualatin, but the price per square foot is consistent, and I think that's the key point, because you're generally getting newer, homes, you're generally getting homes that maybe have been a little bit better cared for over the years. You're getting all of the other amenities that come with newer developments, again, like the sidewalks, the walking trails, the parks, all of that good stuff. So on one hand, yes, Tualatin is a little bit more expensive, but for what you're looking for, when you compare it to, you know, a neighboring Lake Oswego or West Lynn just to the east, which are very nice suburbs, very desirable as well, your dollar is going to go a lot further here. So I think the housing, if it's what you're looking for, is definitely a benefit in Tualatin because really of all of the elements that we've discussed here already in this video. Now, on the flip side of that, you know, we talked about how this is an area that a lot of people would consider to be maybe a little bit cookie cutter. You know, you get a lot of these housing developments where every house kind of looks the same. You have smaller lots. You know, again, you're kind of up in each other's business a little bit with your neighbors. So I think for people who are looking for homes that maybe are a little bit older, maybe have a little more of that charm, kind of historical charm, or just a little bit more of unique neighborhoods where every house has its own style and overall aesthetic and things like that. I mean, you're not going to get that in Tualatin. So I think depending on the style and type of home that you're looking for, everything else, you know, set aside that we've talked about, you know, you're going to get a ton of consistency in Tualatin, but, you know, every house is like, you know, one of, you know, 5 to 6 different shades of, you know, blue, beige, gray, you know what I mean? And, you know, everybody has a home that looks very similar. So as far as style goes and kind of, you know, the type of house that you want to be in, that type of house that you envision living in, you know, you may not find it in Tualatin unless you're really looking for, you know, the one of just a handful of styles that you can really find here in Tualatin. I mean, you know, you get up into like really Tigard and Beaverton to a large degree, but especially up into Portland, Southwest Portland, you know, more suburban areas for sure, but a lot more variety as far as the age and styles of homes. And so you might love everything else that Tualatin has to offer, you know, everything that we've talked about, all of the pros, all of the benefits, but, you know, you're not going to get a ton of variety as far as the style of homes. And I think, you know, that's something that some people could look at as a con. But overall, if Tualatin is an area that sounds interesting to you and you're thinking about moving to the Portland area, you want to get more information about Tualatin or areas like it, you got to give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video. Schedule a Zoom call with us. We can talk about your timeline, put together a game plan, and get you set off on the right track for your move when the time comes. And if this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We really appreciate you watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you later. All right, last thing actually as a bonus, have to mention this for areas like Tualatin, you are right on the edge of wine country. So really starting in the west, a little bit north of here, and really extending all the way down through the Willamette Valley down to Salem, you're going to get a ton of wineries. And whew, the hell got me. You know, I think something that a lot of people around here like to enjoy is getting out to wine tasting rooms, getting out to these vineyards and wineries, spending an afternoon, and joining a wine club too. I mean, you can join a wine club anywhere you are, but to be able to drive 10 minutes and be at that winery and enjoy, you know, some of the extra benefits of being a member, you get that right here in Tualatin. Not a ton in Tualatin proper, but Sherwood has a super high volume when you look at the Portland metro area of these great wineries and vineyards. And so here in Tualatin, it's right on your doorstep. So that's something a lot of people enjoy. Okay, so another con for Tualatin that we have to talk about is I've heard that they've recently done away with their farmers market, and farmers market is such a quintessential thing for Portland towns, you know, cities and suburbs to have. And not having a farmer's market, I mean, you can drive out, you can get to probably several, you know, in relatively close proximity, but come on, Tualatin, what are you doing? You got to have a farmer's market. So that might be something that they, you know, put together at some point. There's a lot of great parks and kind of common areas that, you know, would be great for a farmer's market, but I guess as of now, no farmer's market.